To appreciate the following story, it may be useful to understand that some islands in the Pacific encourage and benefit from tourism. Those are the ones we see depicted in travel agencies and airline magazines. Most Pacific islands, however, are off the beaten track. There are thousands of them. In those cases, if there are hotels and restaurants at all, they serve migrant workers, perhaps from the Philippines, businessmen from such places as China or Japan, and government officials. Ebeye is one of those places. Against the better advice of my American sponsoring agents, I elected to bring Pacific Voices to the Kwajalein Ebeye Atoll in the Republic of the Marshall Islands. While working at the College of Micronesia, COMFSM, I had met a young and enthusiastic teacher from Ebeye, Mr. Romeo Harris, and promised him that if ever given the chance, I would bring our work to his island. In spring 2001, just a year later, the opportunity arrived. I flew Continental Airlines some 5 hours from Honolulu to Majuro, and then hopped 20 minutes to the Ronald Reagan Ballistic Missile Defense Test Site, known to the Americans as Kwaj and the Marshallese as Kwajalein. I was escorted across the base by armored personnel. Romeo greeted me at the dock, grabbed my suitcases and precious technology kit, and escorted me onto a navy gray troop ship that was to take us to his tiny atoll some minutes away. It was late afternoon. I had been flying since dawn. The ship filled with Marshallese commuters as tired as I. Diesel engines rumbled to life. I braced myself at the stern, imagining Private Ryan storming the beaches of Normandy. "My atoll has many people," Romeo shouted, "but I've booked you a room at the Anrohasa Hotel." We arrived at the dock some minutes later. Romeo steadied my hand as I disembarked with anticipation. It was a short walk from the government wharf to the hotel. In fact, it was a short walk to anywhere. The atoll was tiny. A ribbon of sun-bleached coral bordered by placid lagoon on one side and surging ocean some few yards on the other. Teeming with people, war relics submerged and rusting, flotsam and jetsam, mainly plastic and styrofoam, occasional vans and taxis, but mainly and above all else children and youth playing, swimming, and generally loitering as tired adults trudged home from working on the base. "Follow me," Romeo encouraged, smiling, as I took in the sights and sounds of this amazing place, unlike any island I'd ever been. "The Anrohasa is this way." Inside the hotel's shadowy lobby, Romeo took his leave, arranging to meet me at the Ebeye Elementary School the following morning. A bellman assisted me to the second floor. My room was well appointed, with security chain, air conditioner, bed, chair, lamp, TV, sink, and shower. "Thank you," I said. upon tipping. Romeo had recommended a small eatery back up the street, upstairs, overlooking the wharf. I wandered back to find it. Besides a simply furnished dining room, there were 3 tables on a small balcony overlooking the azure blue lagoon, offering a vista of fishing boats, dogs with mange, and children half-clad or naked, swimming, diving, and paddling imaginary canoes disguised as chunks of styrofoam. I chose to sit outside. The sun was just setting with its palette of a million colors. Ordering grilled fish, white rice, and Bud Light without looking at the menu, I believed from experience that the choice would be the healthiest. The washroom was located adjacent to the kitchen, next to the entrance. I went to wash my hands. There was no soap, which was disturbing since I figured the accommodation was also for the employees. There were also no towels, which was of less concern as I had learned during a previous trip to Yap that soap was unnecessary for hygiene so long as hands were thoroughly scrubbed and air-dried. The problem with this restroom, however, as I was about to discover, was that there was also no water. The taps were bone dry and broken. Returning to my table to sip my beer and lose myself in the sunset, I realized, of course, that everything in this world is interrelated. Why have soap if there is no water? Or towels, for that matter. As I walked back to the Anrohasa, the streets were dark and storefronts unlit. Eerie, I thought. Upon arriving at the hotel, the desk clerk informed me of an island-wide power outage. Climbing the stairs in darkness, fumbling for the keys in the hallway, wishing for matches, I arrived safely. My room, at least what I could see of it from the moonlight in the window, was stiflingly hot. The air conditioner was off, without breeze from the open windows. I disrobed entirely and lay on the bed perspiring as minutes turned to hours. Sometime near midnight, there were 3 faint knocks at the door. Fumbling across the room, I unclasped the chain and peered into the hallway. Standing in dim light in near silhouette was a painted Marshallese lady in heels and miniskirt, hair in bouffant, like no Marshallese lady I had ever seen in all my life. "Would you like to sleep with a lady?" she asked. "No, thank you," I said. "I have to work in the morning." She slipped away without further word. Closing and chaining the door, I stumbled to my bed and grabbed the mattress, tugging and pushing and forcing it through the narrow balcony door, where I collapsed prostrate under the stars. The door was to be knocked on several times that night. On each occasion, I thankfully declined. I awoke at sunrise. Children were already playing in the street. Adults making their way to the wharf for the Groundhog Day commute to Kwajalein. I stepped into the shower, but there was no water. Apparently, the plumbing, too, depended on electricity. I scrubbed myself with a cloth made damp with bottled water, ate peanut butter crackers, and walked to work. At week's end, I asked the bellman again to help me with my bags, now less encumbered since our tech kit was to remain at school. As I stood in the lobby reviewing an itemized handwritten bill, the young clerk asked me if I'd enjoyed my stay. Yes, I said. I made new friends. To maintain some semblance of self-esteem, I also spoke the obvious. Since I've been without air conditioning or water for most of the week, I wonder if I'm entitled to a discount. It's not our fault there's no electricity, she responded with a smile. And of course, she was right. Fault is difficult to assess. A year later, on my final visit, I was accompanied by Miss Martha Guinan, a UH associate who was to become my replacement. On the day of our departure, under blue skies and calm water, Martha and I awaited a water taxi at the government wharf, a euphemism for dangerously crowded motorboat. With suitcases in hand, we intended to fly from Kwajalein to Majuro. Mr. Romeo Harris, special education teacher, and Mr. Rutharan Lokijak, director, were on hand as we waited. Rather than mooring where we expected, the taxi tied up at a berth some 25 yards closer to shore. Martha, Romeo, and Rutharan scurried ahead, but for some reason I was slowed down by my packages. Distracted, I stepped onto a manhole cover placed strategically in the middle of the boardwalk. Under my weight, the plate pivoted vertically, abruptly dropping me up to my armpits into the abyss, leaving me dangling some feet above the ocean, supported only by my luggage. With a mix of courage and trepidation, I hoisted myself back onto the roadway to continue breathlessly to the stop. Minutes later, as we launched, embarrassed and shocked, I realized no one had witnessed my ordeal. I decided it wasn't worth mentioning. I waved goodbye to this friendly isle, and unknowingly to Romeo Harris, who was to die unexpectedly not long after. Komoldava. Thank you.